Hello and welcome to Geek Addicts, the pop culture podcast where I don't know, I got nothing. I got nothing. My name is Matt. With me is Bill Barber. How you doing, Bill?
Oh, I'm doing all right. This week was extremely draining, and yeah, we're getting close to the end of the year, so
Yeah, I'm
the
with you.
classics.
What's funny too is I had something earlier this week because I couldn't remember whose turn it was to do the thing, and I had something earlier this week. I was like, oh, this will work. It just completely gone now. It's just been one of those weeks. It just got driven straight out of my mind.
That's usually how it goes.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I haven't done much anime. Actually, I haven't really done any anime watching this week. Because I got one of those jobs where it's like literally the only type of job that I get at work where like technically I could still watch something, but because it's such a temperamental type of job I'm working with, I choose not to. Just because I just stick to audio when I do this kind of thing. But I only have a few pieces left, so I will definitely be finishing it on Monday, and that should give me enough time to finish up the show that I had started last week. So be able to
Nice.
get one more checked off.
Yeah, what have I watched? I mean, I saw the Solo Leveling movie. Um,
Oh, was it not good?
Movie in quotation marks because half of it was a recap. Um,
Oh, really? That's a
yeah,
bummer.
that's the second half was just a sneak peek at season 2. So
That is so dumb.
that's what most anime movies are these days. It seems.
That is so dumb.
I
Well,
mean,
you know what?
the
At
new
least
stuff was
Dragon.
really good. It's
I was
just,
gonna say at least Dragon Ball One Piece doesn't do that shit.
yeah. Well, they're like old school about it. A lot
Mm.
of these animes now are doing like that whole recap thing, and I mean the the way they did it wasn't awful. I think it was more just the fact that I literally watched the series like a week before, so I like had just seen
Mm.
all of it, and I was like, well, guess I'm seeing this again.
Well, I guess that wouldn't be too bad for someone like me who watched the series once, like months ago, and like how I mentioned before, like I don't have a ton of memory of what happened. So like I guess that would be useful for someone like me who watched it a while ago. But
Hmm.
yeah, that's kind of sucky for someone like you who like literally just watched it last week.
Yeah. The new stuff was very interesting though, and it
Hmm.
made me extremely hyped for season 2. So,
Yeah.
um,
Um.
yeah,
So I did it. I did it, Bill.
okay.
I think I got Xander interested in JRPGs.
Oh, nice.
Because well, I finally got him after a year of pestering him. I got him to start playing Final Fantasy VII Remake because I knew that would be a good entry point for him. That's the kind of game he would get into. And he got to the part where they drop the plate,
Hmm.
and I put Francis to bed last night, and I came down. It was almost 10 o'clock, and I came down to be like, oh, I just time for bed, whatever. And I come around the corner and it's like still in the middle of like all the cutscenes, like right after it happened. And like I see him like kind of curled up on the couch, and like I take one look at his face. I'm like, this kid's about to cry. Like, and I don't blame. And you know what it is too, because we talked about it a little bit. It was Wedge. That was what pushed him over the edge because well, Xander comes from a family who's very attached to cats. They all have cats. They all love cats,
Hmm.
and that's kind of like Wedge's big like character thing is he's all about cats. And if I remember correctly too, like doesn't he like run back into like the whole Mesa thing because he's trying to save the cats?
Uh, See, my memory of 7 remake is not very good, so I
Yeah, it's been almost a year since I played it, so it's kind of the same for me. But I'm fairly certain that was what happened, and
because in
he was like literally this close to just sobbing,
yeah,
like.
because Wedge in the original game literally falls off a tower and just kind of dies off screen. Um,
Yeah,
or was that Biggs?
I
Either way,
think
that
they
was
I think they
that was
all pretty much die off screen in the original.
well, yeah, because they get crushed by the tower, the plate falling. Um,
Yeah. Um, but yeah, he like whipped through it. Like I'm pretty sure I had him do it on easy mode just because like I played it on normal and I was struggling like to the point of like serious frustration at certain points. So I was just like, just play
Mhm.
it in easy mode, enjoy the story, mess around, do whatever you need to do, like I don't want him to play it and be like frustrated. I want him to play it and enjoy it. And I think I succeeded in that.
Hmm.
But as an extension of this, he has expressed interest in a few other games. Um, like he was looking at some other Final Fantasy games. He has like the same little DS chip thing that I have, and he started a file on Final Fantasy 3. Um,
Actual three or six
actual
three?
3,
Actual three. Okay.
the DS version. Um, and I think you'll be happy to hear, Bill. He has expressed serious interest in playing Persona 4.
How old
So
is Xander now?
11. No, 12. 12.
Well,
He'll be 13 in June.
he's on the mature side. He might be all right.
Yeah, I mean,
Four's not too like five. That would be pushing it because the
there's
first
dick
boss,
monsters in 5.
the first boss in five is literally a dick coming out of the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, four.
Four's
Oh,
pretty tame. I mean, there's a couple parts where it kind of like borderlines like adult themes, but for the most part, it's pretty tame.
I gotta pause real quick. I'm getting a phone call. Um, Sorry about that.
No worries. But yeah, I think Xander will be fine with that game. Like I said, it's not super crazy or anything.
Yeah, the
The only thing
worst.
the only thing I'm somewhat concerned about is the game does have a slow start, so it's entirely possible that he'll get bored and
Yeah,
just move on. But we'll see.
there is also a few like precision f bombs thrown in there at a couple points, but
I mean, that we watched Deadpool and Wolverine with him a couple weeks ago. It's
okay,
fine.
that's fair.
He was always the kid who would like if we had a swear jar, it'd be full. Like he,
True.
you know. I mean, I tend to be careful around other people's kids, but Xander does. He's whatever.
Okay. Yeah,
um,
four's definitely. What that four might be all right.
yeah, and yeah, he's expressed just a couple other things. I did also learn recently that because obviously I have Chrono Trigger on my Vita, but I already have like my file and everything going. I was thinking because I learned recently that the DS version
Mhm.
obviously is pretty much just as expensive as every other version, but the Japanese version apparently has an English option and is a reasonable price. So I was thinking about try to get a Japanese copy
Of
um,
the DS
of Chrono
version.
Trigger. Yeah.
Hmm.
So then he get because he actually just found his DS Lite. So I was
Oh, good.
thinking if I could get that copy, then he'd have a copy of Chrono Trigger he could play, and that version still has like all the cutscenes and stuff, right?
The DS version's the definitive version. So
Okay, yeah. So I think he'll like that because it's a shorter one. It gets going pretty quick. I found it to be very easy to just play without having to look up a bunch of stuff. So I think he'd enjoy that one.
yeah, no, that's a pretty good one. Um, like the only other RPG I can think of, like that's a good beginner RPG, is like Final Fantasy IV. That's a very not the 3D DS version. That version is like the hardest version of the game.
Is it?
Um,
Because he
oh,
actually has that version.
so the fun fact about what makes the DS version of Final Fantasy IV so compelling is the fact that every strategy and thing you know about the original game gets thrown completely on its head. Everything is significantly harder. Um,
Okay.
Strategies that you knew from the original no longer work. You have to relearn everything from scratch. It's an interesting version of the game.
What about how where do we stand on 3?
Uh,
Because that would be the next one I play in the lineup, but I have the Vita version and the DS version.
so that version isn't like challenging in the way that 4DS is. That version's more just kind of so three DS slash PSP, the 3D remake. It's three, but it's also kind of like an original take on three because it's kind of different from the actual original game.
Like story wise?
Not so much story wise, it's more just like it kind of They changed some things up just to modernize it a little bit.
Or are they at least like positive changes for the most part, or
Yeah, I'd still prefer the original version just because I like that. I like the old style art. And I think the DS version feels kind of slow just because of the 3D graphics and stuff. But
oh wait, is the Vita version? That's the PS? That would be the PSP version, wouldn't it?
yeah, which is just it's just the DS version.
Okay, so either way, I have the same version.
Yeah, the only way to play original 3 is with the pixel remasters.
Right, so he'd either be stuck playing it on a console, or well, at least for Xander, he's got a Switch, so he could get those games. He could get any of those games. So
Yeah. I mean, the definitive way to play 4 is probably the PSP version.
okay. And I was trying to push original Final Fantasy 7, and I think he did start a file briefly.
It's
Um,
it's very hard to play that right after playing Remake just because it's such a different game.
that's fair. But I'm also gonna try and dangle the carrot of Crisis Core in front of him and say, hey, this is a spin-off of the original 7. So if you wanna play this, gotta play that.
Hmm.
Also, uh, when I come down to see you, I'm gonna bring like my style. I want to basically I want to rip your copy of the what that movie. What the hell's it
Uh,
called?
so can you rip Blu-rays?
Oh, it's a Blu-ray. Shit. No, I
Yeah,
can't.
it's
Damn it.
um. hmm. I'll have to think. Actually, while we're here, we can stop at the retro that retro store and see if we can find a copy of it for cheap,
Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah.
potentially. Um, but yeah. Other than that, though, I'm trying to think of another beginner-friendly RPG.
Oh, he's got Attack of the Saiyans, which I actually beat this week.
Ironically, I don't know if that game's beginner-friendly.
I mean, it's not super difficult.
It's not super difficult, but it does have some unforgivable moments where you're just like, damn.
Yeah, I was actually really mad because I was grinding. I was checking because I had gotten to the point where it was like right before the Vegeta fight, and I was just trying to get because I got like the like weird Popo Dragon Balls,
Hmm.
and I had gotten all the dead characters back, and I was trying to get Yamcha and Tien up to level with everybody else. And I had gotten like right there. I was like, oh, I was like, I found a great grinding spot, and I was like, hey, what's this portal? It was Broly.
Oh, right. Yeah, that.
Yeah, and you know it's funny too. It didn't. It literally was just like a text box that said Kakarot, and I was like, fuck. I was like, please tell me it's gonna say, hey, do you want to go in this portal? Because I thought maybe it was just gonna be like a portal that would take you to like hell or something, like for like an extra grinding spot or something like that. Nope, it just throws you right in. There's no way to escape. You're just screwed. And I lost, and there was no save point by there, so I lost a good bit of grinding from that. Um,
Yep.
and that was when I said, "Fuck this! I'm just gonna go fight Vegeta and end the game because I'll come back and grind and beat Broly later, but I'm not doing all that again."
It's so weird. The game ends on Vegeta.
And you know what? You know what was really fucked up? That like really was just like, yeah, that figures. When you go to fight Vegeta, it asks you if you want to.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Classics.
when it's just a portal to Broly and it doesn't have any indication that it is Broly until you're actually in it. It's like no. The like level 50 boss, that one it'll ask if you're sure. But the level 70 boss, nah, that'll be a surprise.
Yeah, classic.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. Other than that, I started watching Don to Don yesterday. That
Oh
show's
yeah?
weird. It
Is
was
it?
very weird.
Well, I mean, I've been hearing about that series for like a while now, like long before there was even word of an anime adaptation. Because a podcast I listen to where they talk about like different mangas and stuff, and that's one they've been talking about for a while.
Hmm.
So when I heard they were making an anime for it, I was intrigued, and when it wraps up its dub, I'll definitely gonna give it a watch.
Uh, Next week, the last episode. So,
Cool, cool. Which reminds me, I still gotta watch Oshinoko season 2.
that's a mood whiplash of a season too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Geez.
Yeah, other than that though, not a whole lot. Just trying to get through the rest of the month.
Yeah. For context, I'm sure people know by now. It's only mid-December at the time of recording, even though this is coming out in January.
Yeah. Yep.
So
Um
holiday is right around the corner.
hmm, that is for sure. Um yeah. So I guess we could probably get into our topic for this episode.
Yeah, sounds good. So we're
Um
doing another manga review, or well, I guess review is too specific a term because we're technically covering the first two volumes of this series. Originally, we were going to do the first four volumes, but after starting to read it, I was like, "Yeah, this is really dense. Maybe we should cut it down." So
shit is very dense.
yeah, in a good way, but it is definitely a lot all at once.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
so you said you watched Death Note a while back, right?
Yeah, it's been so long that I really need to sit down and watch it again
Well,
cuz
that's why I thought that reading it would be good because then kind of refresh your memory on the series and also kind of because there is like not a ton more in the manga, but they do like kind of cut like some little things out of the anime just to make it more digestible in anime form.
yeah, which is hilarious because my most recent experience with Death Note is the wonderful Netflix film. So it was
And
very
even that was a
interesting.
while ago.
Yeah, but that shit sticks with you. Excuse
Hmm,
me.
that's for sure. Um,
Um, yeah. So Death Note is an interesting one to me. Like the manga itself. It's newer than I thought.
yeah,
Because
early
it's
2000s or early mid
2000,
2000s.
2003.
Hmm.
And it ran till 2006, 12 volumes, 13 kind of. The 13th volume is interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean that's like uh, what's that Spy Family like?
Case closed or something, or
Yeah,
secret
whatever that one.
secret files.
Secret File. Yeah, it's just bios and shit, like little extra blurbs, things like that.
It's little fluff, and just like the Spy Family one, volume 13 is like bigger and sticks out like a sore thumb in any collection.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, unless you get
Um,
the black editions, and in which case it's smaller and sticks out in a different
yeah,
way.
or you get the all in one, and you're just having a bad time altogether.
then you're just upset all over.
Then you're like, this sucks. It's like, what? This is so hard to read.
Yeah. Which is ironic because that 13th volume is called How to Read.
Yeah, how to read page one. Don't buy the all in one.
um,
Um,
so yeah, what
so
were your first impressions of the first couple volumes?
it's a very interesting one to me because it's another case of the more I read manga, the more you'll run into like so. I shouldn't be too surprised because I mean we literally had this with Pokemon, but like I always find it fascinating when it's a manga where there's an artist and a writer, and they both
Mhm.
are separate. So not One Piece, Death Note was written by Sugumi Oba. I believe that's
Mhm.
how you pronounce it, and
I
it's
believe so.
illustrated by Tachi Obata. Um, very unique art style. Very
Yes,
it's got a very like it's like soft but angular at the same time, kind of.
he loves drawing hair.
He does. He also loves drawing butts.
I feel like that's a very consistent thing with a lot of manga artists.
Well, he liked drawing that one character's butt that you see towards the end of volume two. Um,
Oh, Naomi
wh-
Misura.
yeah, the girl in the biker jacket and
Yeah.
jeans. He liked
Mhm.
drawing her butt a lot.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
we haven't
that's
even
a,
gotten we haven't even gotten to the real fan servicey character.
I know. I was like, I was laughing because I'm like going through it because we've had a weird like all the manga that we've covered. Ironically, Dragon Ball's been the least fan servicey, which is kind of saying something in a way. But
Mhm.
um, we've had a weird like thing of like all these mangas have been oddly fan servicey at points. Like Yu-Gi-Oh was thirsty as fuck for some reason.
Oh,
Um,
extremely.
the Pokemon anime was like almost uncomfortably like fan servicey at times, and this one is kind of tame so far. Like the most fan servicey character we've seen so far is a lady in jeans. So,
Yeah, that's for sure.
um, yeah, I like the art style though. I will say Death Note is definitely not a beginner friendly manga.
Which is actually kind of funny because, with the exception of Naruto, Death Note is the first manga I started to collect.
Hmm.
Actually, those 2 volumes I gave you, I bought those when I was in middle school.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
like I
The
bought the,
border,
I bought
the
them at
borders.
at Borders. Yeah,
There was a board. Actually, there was fun fact. There was a borders like tag in one of them still, and I was like, "Oh, that's funny."
yeah, like that. Those are old volumes. um, and well thumbed through. I can say that much.
Um, yeah, I will say like very wordy. The writing style. It's really interesting going from like Dragon Ball Super to Yu-Gi-Oh to Death Note. It's like we progressively get wordier and wordier.
Hmm.
It's actually almost on par with Pokemon of all things, which is really ironic considering Pokemon is like supposed to be a kids manga.
Yeah, that's for sure. But I mean, like Pokemon, like obviously, like it has its actiony stuff, but it is like the manga at least is very story driven in a lot of ways. So it makes sense there would be a lot of dialogue. Whereas like I mean Yu-Gi-Oh had a lot of that stuff too, but it also leaned real heavy into like a lot of the different like art, like the like stage setting, you know,
Hmm.
with like like the surroundings and everything like that. Like and also how kind of grounded the art style is in Death Note. I really like that too, where it's like it's very much a modern like urban setting, you know.
Hmm. Yeah. Also, one thing I found interesting is like it is a very detailed manga, which makes sense considering it's a separate team. Like the writer can focus on the writing and the artist can focus on the art, so it's like they
Hmm.
probably are able to get away with some more complicated stuff because the page layouts are very busy.
Yeah, funny enough, you'll notice a very distinct similarity between the art in Death Note and the art in Bakugan of all things, because it's the same artist.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I
And, like
thought
if
of
you look at like some like manga covers of Bakugan, just look at the hair and you know it's the same guy.
hmm, Bakugan. I haven't thought of that in fucking forever.
It's still around. You'd be surprised.
I'd imagine. I can imagine.
Mhm.
Um, so how do you want to approach this? Because it's not exactly the easiest to break down. I think.
Yeah, like I said at the top, it's a very dense series. It's a lot going on. I guess we could start with just like the how like the first chapter kind of like introduces everything. One thing I noticed is that different from the anime, because in the anime it kind of showed the whole process of him like getting the Death Note, testing it out, like kind of going through his whole little inner monologue about like, should I do this? Is it the right thing to do? Um, and then ultimately, committing himself to you know the whole thing.
Hmm.
Whereas in the manga, it he gets the Death Note and he's just like, yeah, whatever, and then it jumps straight to Ryuk um, showing up in his room, and then he shows him the Death Note, and it's like tons of names in it already, and then it kind of backtracks and shows him going through that whole process.
Yeah, I found it interesting too. Like Light is such a doesn't give a shit character at first.
Mhm.
Like he just doesn't care. He's like, notebook, whatever.
Yeah. And one thing I'll notice is like, especially like reading this first chapter, and even like some of the chapters later on, Pay attention to the way like his facial expressions are, because at the beginning, he kind of has like the classic like more round-eyed anime character, like you can tell like he may have his own ideas about how certain things should be, but he's still very much an innocent kid, you know.
Hmm.
Like he may have some darkness in him, which becomes very apparent very quickly. Um, but I mean, we all do, but you could tell from the beginning, like he's just a regular kid. He's very smart, but he's just a regular kid. But as the series goes on, you'll notice more and more like that darkness seeping through. And that's one of those things about this series that I absolutely love, because it blurs the line, the very, very fine line between good intention and evil action.
Hmm. Yeah, I noticed that. It has a very gray overall feeling to it.
For sure. Yeah.
Um, Also, I found it very interesting, like because I forgotten about a lot of things from this from the anime.
Hmm.
Um, I forgot that they kind of like wrote his family out of the Netflix movie for the most part.
Yeah, it was just him and his dad. And his dad was just like a beat cop pretty much in the movie, but in this he's like the cop
Yeah,
of like the whole shebang.
he's like the cop, and then his mom and sister couldn't be any different from him personality wise.
Hmm. For sure. Um
Um,
so and also I noticed that we don't really start to get an idea of what the cast is going to look like until towards the end of volume 2, because that's
yeah,
when it oh
I
go
could not tell who was supposed to be a significant character, like going
on.
for the first volume, anyways. Like
Yeah,
other than Light, Ryuk, and I'm assuming his family are at least somewhat significant.
mostly his dad, but yes.
Like
There,
I
there is
assume
some there
his
is some stuff with his family as well, but it's
yeah,
mostly his dad.
yeah, because we really only barely get introduced to L in volume one.
Hmm. And
Like
it's
he,
mostly through a computer.
yeah, and L is almost an entirely different character in the manga than he was in that Netflix movie. That's for sure.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it's a weird because it's like the best way to describe it is like volume one is just like a lot being thrown at you at once.
Yeah, and there's something I want you to keep in mind as we're going through this. Like every time we do an episode like this and read another chunk of a series, keep in mind that the writer for this series does not plan. This is all week to week, coming up with it on the spot.
Hmm.
So like and this is one of the reasons why I think this show is such a stroke of genius, where like so many other manga writers or writers in general like go through such pains to map out these kinds of deep, intricate stories. And this this one, which is an incredibly iconic one to me at least, like surpasses so many of them. And there was no planning whatsoever. This is all just every week, it just as much in the dark about what's going to happen next as the reader.
Hmm. Yeah, like something I found interesting too is Light is a very subdued personality.
Yeah, well, I think he keeps a lot of shit bottled up.
Yeah, because like I always think of like in the fucking Netflix movie when he first encounters Ryuk, he fucking has that amazingly craptastic freak out in the best way possible.
Yep.
Um, Meanwhile, in this one, he doesn't seem that perturbed by it. He's just kind of like, oh, you're following me around now, I guess.
Yeah, he
Whatever.
kind of tips over for a second, then he's like, "Eh, all
He's like, oh, you're not gonna kill me? Whatever.
right, cool. I guess I'll just keep doing what I'm doing."
Yeah. Ryuk is very interesting too. He's got that very sarcastic like wit to him. I totally read every line of his in William Defoe's voice though now.
Well, that's funny, 'cause I read him in what's his name,
The guy from the anime, I'm guessing.
Brian Drummond. Yeah, I read him in Brian Drummond's voice because I've watched the anime so many times that
Yeah.
that's like the definitive voice for me.
I just have that goofy ass William Defoe like voice going through my head, and I'm always like, this is funny.
Hmm.
Just because that voice doesn't fit the weird like punk rocker vibe he's got going on.
Oh, for real. And like I love like his little like snide comments, is like his sarcasm. Like he's always like yucking all over the place.
Yeah, I love too how he's like, oh yeah, my book fell in the human world, so now it belongs to the human world. Um, he's like, you can just get rid of it, and it won't matter. He's like, oh, but if anyone else touches it, they'll also be able to see me, so keep that in mind.
Yeah, I love how he just like slips that stuff in like every now and then. He's like, "Oh yeah, by the way, I forgot to tell you this."
Yeah, he tells him stuff that's really important at the last possible second, and then Light's just kind of like, oh, that would have been nice to know. I
Yeah, well, it's
guess.
one of those cool things. Well, he makes it very clear from the start, like I am not on your side. I'm just here because the Shinigami world doesn't have any TV, so I'm looking for entertainment. Like you,
Yeah, he's just an internet troll. That's really all Ryuki is.
pretty much, and I love every second of it. It's fantastic.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, he's just a pure delight throughout the whole thing.
I
Um,
I liked how subtle they made Light's first kill in the manga.
mhm.
Like he's kind of experimenting with it, so he sees like this scumbag on TV that's like, I think it's like a kidnapper or something. He has like a bunch of people hostage,
Mhm.
um, and he just like, casually like writes it in the death note, and then suddenly he just kind of sees it happen, and he's like, "Oh, that's cool. I guess
Yeah.
I just killed somebody."
Um, yeah, I'm trying to think how we should go forward from here. I guess we could jump into the first like real kind of showdown between Light and L,
Hmm.
because that's a pretty significant turning point in the series. Even
Yeah,
that's like the second chapter.
yeah. And L is interesting. Like I'm curious because I don't remember at all. I'm curious where his character kind of goes in the manga.
Hmm. Yeah, I'll try not to say too much on like later stuff, but it's very apparent even just from this first encounter. Like he he's not afraid to kind of push the limits of morality
Hmm.
to I guess chase justice in that sense. Because he knows what Kira is doing is wrong, and he is determined to get to the bottom of it. Um, and like it'll become very apparent as you go through, but someone like Light's dad would never have done that kind of ruse where like even though like they specifically took a criminal who was supposed to die, who was actually supposed to be executed that day during that hour. So I mean essentially he was just carrying out his scheduled execution.
Hmm.
But like the way that was gone about, like a lot of more traditional by the books guys like Suichiro Yagami would never have done that, whereas L is willing to take that kind of step.
Yeah, and I like the whole the morally vague kind of like characterizations we have going on here because like what I find fascinating is even though the main character is Light, he's not really the hero.
No, that's the
Depending
thing.
on,
He's the villain, and that's what I love about it.
hmm. But then you look at like the quote unquote the secondary main character L, who is also not really the hero. He's also kind of the morality is very interesting, like in this whole thing.
For sure. Um,
Like you don't know who you're supposed to be rooting for here.
yeah, and this is where Light like really starts to kind of show his hand in a lot of ways. Because, well, first of all, this is where you really first start to see like the cracks start to form in like the persona that he gives other people.
Mm.
Because when he's kind of like gloating over the stand-in that L had put there, you kind of get that idea of like, okay, so he's not purely purely doing this out of a sense of duty or justice. This is he's getting off doing this.
Mm.
Um, and it's also like this is the big mistake that he makes. Like pretty much everything else he does is purely like extremely well thought out and meticulously devised.
Mm.
Accepting L's challenge here is Like if he had just ignored it and not killed that guy, there wouldn't be a show because no one would ever catch him. Because that's just the pure nature of the way the Death Note works. But
Mm.
because L is so intelligent about the way he did it, like like he was able to pinpoint him down to a district
Yeah.
with the first exchange. Like that's insane.
Yeah, and that's the thing about L that's very interesting is the fact that he seems kind of like spacey and out of it, but he's like extremely intelligent.
Yeah. I think there's been like a lot of speculation on whether or not he's like autistic or has like Asperger's or something like that. Which I mean, to a degree, I could understand because he does have a lot of interesting habits and ticks and things like that that you could associate with those kinds of.
Like how he his weird tendency to sit like a fucking gremlin in every chair he's in.
Yes, and that is something that won't be going away anytime soon.
Yeah, I just find that amusing. He's like, it's just like, what the fuck is he doing?
Hmm. Yeah. Um. So they go through that whole exchange, and I'm trying to think what happens next. All right. So this is where we start getting into the point where like the task force uh is built up. You got Light's dad who's a part of it, and then you get like there's like I don't know like 100, 200 people at first. There's like a lot of people in the task force, and it doesn't take very long for that to get whittled down. But because obviously Light's dad is a part of the task force, he he's on the same like network as his dad, so he can access his dad's files without leaving a trail.
Hmm.
So he's basically purposefully leaving clues to try and draw L out so that he can kill him.
Hmm.
And in doing so, he's trying to arouse suspicion between L and the Japanese police that he's working with.
Yeah, because that's like the most compelling thing about the Death Note is the fact that he needs their know their full name and their what they look like
Mm-hmm.
to be able to actually kill somebody.
Yes.
Um, because he has no idea. Because is L even L's real? I'm assuming that's not his real name.
It's ambiguous.
Okay, yeah, that's what I remember. I remember it being weird.
Uh, there is speculation about it. The live action movie says that he like says his name at one point, but it's not. I don't think it was ever really confirmed whether that was his actual name or not.
Yeah, yeah. Because I remember like in the live action movie, Ryuk makes that whole joke about, oh, if you could put my name in there, but no one's ever gotten it right.
Yeah, and the manga very quickly it's just like, yeah, no, you just can't. Like there is a way to kill Shinigami, but stabbing them, shooting them, writing their name in the death note, none of that works. So
Yeah,
that's just automatically out the door. Also, there's no like, oh, you can erase a name, and if you do it before or you burn a page before the death is carried out, then it can't. No, that's not a thing.
yeah.
It's just
None of
once a name is in there, it's set in stone. It's gonna happen
yeah, none of this like Twilight esque bullshit that was in the Netflix movie.
for real. Like Netflix changed a lot of the way like the rules worked, and I wasn't like honestly like changing up the way the story works and stuff. Like that's whatever. Um, Changing up the characters' personalities, stuff like that, that was criminal, I think. But one of the biggest things that they did was change the way the Death Note works, and that alone, like, kind of screws the whole scope of the story.
Hmm.
Um,
I mean, that whole movie is fucking glorious, though, for all the wrong reasons.
oh, for sure, for sure. So yeah, it's so he's like kind of like laying breadcrumbs to try and lure L out, but also at the same time creating a hostile work environment between him and the police.
Hmm.
So L ultimately is like, okay, so Kira obviously has access to our information. So that means that he has to be either a part of the task force or related to them somehow to
Hmm.
be able to access the information. Um, So he ends up hiring or calling up the FBI and having them send out agents to investigate. Um, and you'll have to call attention to it if I skip anything by accident. But and I love the way that the way Light becomes aware of it is how
Yeah.
Ryuk's just like, yeah. So I just want to like reiterate that I am not on your side and I'm not on L's side. I really don't care which way this whole thing goes. I just like watching it. But this dude's following you, and since I'm behind you, I feel like he's following me, and it's bugging the shit out of me. So do something about it.
Yeah.
Like,
Ryuk's entire personality is like, he's like, this is cinema. But he's
yeah.
like, but it annoys me, so do something about it.
This is inconveniencing me, so I'm gonna need you to do something about that.
Yeah. He's like, I'm not here to help you, but this annoys me, so do something, please.
Mm-hmm.
um,
It was really really funny how that played out, and then he goes into this whole spiel about Shinigami eyes, which is a apparently ancient deal that exists between Shinigami and humans, where you could be granted the eyes of a Shinigami for half of your lifespan. And if you do that, then you can see everybody's true name and the day that they'll die floating above their head if you have them. To which Light says, "Fuck you."
yeah. Yep.
Pretty much.
So another thing I found there's a lot of plot threads in the first two volumes that I was like, oh, I don't remember this at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like Light's whole little like date he goes on.
Oh, the whole bus jacking thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's how he ultimately gets the guy's name.
Hmm.
So basically, he found a criminal that he thought would like fit the bill or whatever, and he wrote down this elaborate thing where basically he says because he can control people to a degree by writing their name in the death note, like he can control their actions before death, as long as it's within reason for something they would do. So he gets this drug addict criminal guy to hijack a bus that he took a date on, and basically the whole like concept of it was he tricked the the guy who was following him. Like he did like this whole ruse or whatever, basically being like, oh, I'm gonna jump the guy while he was writing notes to his date there. And obviously the FBI guy's like, no, don't do that. Like I worst comes to worst, I can take care of him, don't worry. And Light's like, well, how do I know that you're not an associate of his? How do I know you're not an accomplice? So that was how he tricked him into showing him the ID. But then he tosses a piece of the death note which he wrote like plans for the day on, like like regular like date plans, and like basically tricks the hijacker into picking it up. And because he touched a piece of the death note, he can now see Ryuk. He freaks out, runs out of the bus, gets hit by a car.
Yeah. That was a scene where I was like, ooh, like that would have been interesting.
Mm-hmm.
He does that a lot with the whole like writing in like pieces of the Death Note thing in this. I've noticed.
Oh, he's not going to stop anytime soon either. Like having like little pieces like that hidden around and stuff like that. Like it's a very interesting way that he uses it to play into his plans.
Well, I was a little confused at first because at first I thought he was just writing on other pieces of paper and then sticking them in the Death Note, but then I was like, oh no, that is the Death Note. He's just taking pieces of it.
Mm. And they don't. I don't think they ever like actually say it outright. But the Death Note never runs out of pages. Like it just kind of like refills itself.
It's magic.
Yes, I mean literally. So yeah, like they go through that whole thing, huh?
Yeah. Did that the girl he goes on the date with have any significance, or was she just a pawn?
Just a pawn.
Okay.
I mean, he literally says like, "This is just the first girl I'm gonna call. If she's busy or doesn't want to go out, I'm just gonna call someone else." Like, she just happened to be the first one to say yes.
Because I was like, oh, here's a girl, and I'm like, oh, she's not important in the slightest. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Um. So yeah, that whole bit happens. Then we actually get a little bit of the FBI guy, Ray Penber. We kind of go back to his apartment or his hotel room, and that was where we first meet his fiance. And like she used to be an FBI agent, and this is one scene that like even way back when I watched this, I was kind of like, ugh, where he's like, look, I know you used to be an FBI agent, you were great, you were so smart, you were so good at your job, but we're getting married, and you're gonna be a stay-at-home mom, so just stay out of it. Essentially, they're American though, or at least he is.
Written but in Japan because well, also 2003.
Yeah,
that's
it's like wow,
some classic misogyny right there, and I'm like, yeah, that's nice.
Even when I watched that way back in the 2000s, that still it still didn't age well, and it was only a few years old at that point. So
yeah, I love how he's supposed to be American too, and then it's like he's so very anime that I'm like, yeah, I ain't buying it.
yeah, so that happens, and like you can tell right away, like she's suspicious of like the way like things went down, like the whole like bus jacking incident. Like he mentions he had to show his ID to somebody and everything, and she's instantly suspicious. Like this can't be a coincidence. This has to be related to Kira somehow. And of course, she's right on the money, but nobody believes her.
Yeah. Yeah, she was an interesting character. Like, I found her to be very compelling.
For sure. Which
probably led more into like the what happens later to be more meaningful, I should say.
Yeah. Which actually, at one point, she mentions that when she was an FBI agent, she actually worked on a case with Elle back in the States. There is a light novel telling that story. And I have it. It's actually a very good read. It's short. You get through it very quickly. So if you're interested, maybe at some point we could cover that as well. But probably after this is done. But
yeah, it'll be a while. But
I still think it's worth a read for sure. So then we get into how he takes care of Ray Penber and the rest of the FBI agents, actually. Because he waits a little while. He gives it some time to let him investigate some other people. And at this point, he has no idea how many FBI agents there actually are. He's estimating that there's at least 50, when in actuality, there's only 12.
Yeah.
Which really whittles down the options quite a bit, unbeknownst to him. So basically, he writes Ray Penber's name in the notebook with, like, once again, he has this whole complicated spiel that he does, where he actually meets him at the train station. He goes up behind him and is like, hey, don't turn around. Look at that guy over there. Boom, he's dead. I'm Kira. Do as I say or I'll kill everybody here. Because obviously nobody knows how the death note works. They just know he can kill people from a distance. So it's, as far as he's concerned, it's a very legitimate threat. He tricks him into thinking that he knows all of his loved ones and all the other shit. So he gets him to board the train with envelopes, which I'm sure by now everybody knows what's in those envelopes. And, basically tricks him into writing down the names of all the other FBI agents. And they all pretty much die, like, at the same time.
Yeah, that was like I was like, wow. That was like really the point where I'm like, yeah, Light's not a hero at all.
Yeah. It becomes very clear very fast that he will take out anybody who gets in his way, regardless of how moral they are.
I was like, the whole time I'm just sitting here going like who are we rooting for again?
I mean, at one point, even as early as like maybe early volume 2, he like blatantly says like, look, if I'm not careful, I might have to kill my family. Like he doesn't even say like, oh, what if something happens? No, he's just straight up like, if I have to, I will.
Mm.
And like, I mean, he's a piece of shit, but I mean that's dedication. You know, it's dedication.
Yeah. It's like, damn. Like, that's basically all you can really say is just damn.
Yeah, like no hesitation. He's just like, no, it's just if it comes to it, I'll do it.
Mm.
You know, and like I said, like this happens fast. This is all within like a couple weeks of him getting it.
Mm.
Maybe a month. You know, and like let's just like compare what we've seen of this Elite so far to what we saw in the Netflix movie. Very different.
Well, the Netflix movie, he just makes out with what's her name the entire time.
Yeah, Mia.
Yeah, not is her name Miska or whatever?
Misa.
Misa, yeah. Yeah, not Misa. Basically.
Yeah.
Twilight Misa. That's the best way
Yeah,
to
pretty
put it.
much. She does look like she could be in Twilight.
That whole movie feels very Twilight to me.
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
So yeah, the it goes through that whole thing, and this is the point. Like once all the FBI agents die, this is the point where all the Japanese police, the task force, become aware that L has been looking into them,
mm,
and obviously by this point, like they've learned enough about like what's going on with Kira and what happened with the FBI agents. Like everyone's quitting the task force now. It's like no, we don't want to die. We don't want our family to die. Our names are right out there. Anybody can look us up. Like, no, we're done.
yeah, they're basically the classic, well, fuck this. I'm
Yeah,
out.
exactly. And ultimately, by the end of it, there's what 6 people left,
Yeah, not a lot.
and there's your cast of characters. That those 6, they
Yeah,
are the ones who will be around.
yeah.
Um,
Um,
so I'm trying to remember all their names.
a,
We got Daddy Yagami, right?
mhm,
This Matsuda, the lovable idiot.
yep.
We got Mogi, the big burly one. Um, Ukita with his like weird hairstyle,
Mm,
and um, Aizawa, who's kind of like he's kind of like the family man of the group.
mm,
Which you don't really learn about that until a little bit later. But he's definitely kind of like the
mm.
I don't even know how I would describe him. I can't really go into it without spoiling stuff, but he's a good character. I'll say that much.
Yeah, I kind of like got the impression from them that
And,
they're.
hmm?
I kind of like got that impression. I was like, oh, okay, these are going to be significant.
Oh, and there was one more. I forget his name because he immediately is like, "Yeah, I don't like the way L does things, so I'm out."
Yeah,
Pretty much. As soon as they realized like he was just waiting for the numbers to get whittled down to like the really determined ones.
Mm,
Um, but we will see him later, so we'll just keep that tucked away for later. Um, and this is the point where L's like, okay, now that I've got everybody whittled down to the most determined, the most, um, the bravest of the bunch, I guess.
mm.
I am going to reveal myself to you, and we are going to work directly in person together
Yeah,
on this, which is a big deal because he's never done that before. And even like pre all this crazy supernatural killing shit, he never showed his face. And I love the way he's like the way that reveal goes down
mm.
because it's immediately apparent that he's kind of just a fucking weirdo.
Yeah, yeah. That's like the best way of putting him.
Mm-hmm. But like at the same time, he's like incredibly practical and incredibly thorough with everything he does.
Mm.
Immediately, everybody walks into the hotel room, and he just goes, "Hey, I'm L," and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, my name's this, my name's that, my name's this," and he's just like, "Bang, you're dead." He's like, "If I'm Kira, you're dead. Don't just give out your name like that. Like,
Yeah.
be smart."
Yeah.
Which reasonable.
Well, considering how the world works at this point, yeah, probably not the smartest thing to just throw out there.
Mm-hmm. And I did notice by this point, this is like by the point where he kind of whittled down everybody, because you kind of saw these characters earlier, but they weren't very well defined, like either artistically or character wise. Now that they've got the characters whittled down to this core group, like now, like you're starting to see more detail in the way they're drawn, like more distinct characteristics for each of them.
Yeah.
You're starting to see a lot more expression and emotion in the way they're drawn in certain scenes.
Yeah. So what happened next?
This would be the point where basically L's like bringing them up to speed with everything that he's kind of figured out up to this point.
Mhm.
Um, and Light is sent by his mother to bring his dad a change of clothes, and this is where he meets up with Naomi.
Yes.
Where they bump into each other at the police station, and almost immediately he's like, she knows something. Like something's going on here. Like this doesn't feel right.
I mean,
Like
she
I'm gonna
does.
talk.
She is kind of not inconspicuous in the slightest. So
No, which is pretty obvious. But I mean, she's also sitting there like, no, I need to talk to the Kira task force. Like she's kind of being super in the open about it, And to be fair, if she was able to get any sort of message to L, and really what she should have done, because she has a history with L, all she had to do is just leave a message saying, um, leaving some sort of, because L's fucking smart as shit. She could have left some sort of like kind of message that would be somewhat cryptic to anybody else, but to him, like even just mentioning the case that they worked on or something like that. Like she could have figured out a way to handle that better, but obviously she was bereft. Her fiance had just died, and she was dead set certain that Kira killed him. And well, I mean, obviously it was well known by that point, um, but at that point it was like, and she was she had shit down, like she knew like all the like a bunch of details that nobody else knew. Just based on the little bit of extra information that she was able to glean.
she's also smart enough not to give her real name.
Yes.
Well, at first.
Yeah, I love that whole scene though. Well, that's the thing, is he plays on her grief like that, so that's one of those really fucked up like mental manipulation shit that he does a lot to people.
That's one of the darkest scenes in this manga. In all
Oh, for
honesty.
sure. And actually, that whole bit with them walking and talking and him trying to get her name and everything, that was the first episode I saw of the anime when
Yeah.
I was in like middle school. And I think it was at my dad's house. I was up super late. It was late night Toonami, and I just happened to flip it on, and I was watching that whole bit where like they meet and they're going on that walk, and like the episode ends when she's going off to kill herself, and I was like, I need to see more of this because
Yeah.
this is fucking wild.
Well, because it's like they do a really good thing of like when she gives him the fake name and L immediately, not L, Light immediately puts it in the death note with all of his stuff, and he's like, nothing happened. It must have been a fake name.
Well, it's not even that. It's because every time her name gets brought up, whether it's like her giving her name or him writing the name, Ryuki's just laughing his fucking ass off
Well, yeah.
the whole time. Like super obvious. And this is actually like the moment where let's say I personally was in Light's shoes. I was trying to be Kira. I was trying to do the things he's doing. I wouldn't be able to keep a straight face with him chucking away behind me.
Yeah.
I would be laughing, and I wouldn't be able to keep a straight face. This would be the point where I'd be like, nope, I'm caught. Just take me away.
Yeah.
Or
Give
I would,
someone a
or I would have caved and done the ideal because there's no way I would have made it otherwise.
yeah. Just gives the book a piece of paper to someone like, you see this shit? Like
Yeah, right.
what I have to deal with? You'd
For
want to kill
real,
people too.
for real. So yeah, like basically, like she had figured out that Kira can kill with means other than just a heart attack, and that he can control the actions of people before they die. Which at this point, everybody just thinks that it's just heart attacks. That's all it is. Of course, L is starting to suspect this, but he doesn't know for sure yet. And obviously, as I said, she's right on the money. So Light's like, I gotta get rid of this bitch. She
Yeah.
is going to fuck me hard, and not in a good way. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Just that
it,
scene where he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm part of the task force." Like, it's all like basically just like following her around and like basically plays right into his hand to get her to show him her ID.
yeah, he kind of stalks her for like a little while because there
Yeah,
was
he
a
like
point where
follows
like they
her.
were talking. Yeah, like there was the point where they were talking and everything else, and she was like, you know what, like, thank you for like affirming what I was saying of like what like I'm a lot more convinced of my own beliefs now, so I'm really determined now. I'm gonna go and talk to them and shit. And she's like, but like, if you don't have any more business at the police station, like I'm just gonna go and do this myself. So nice to meet you, but bye. And he just continues to walk behind
Yeah,
her the whole time.
yeah. This is
Like
where all the
it's
fucking ass shots are because like while he's following her, they have to just show that like the whole time.
yeah, it's just such a weird thing.
There's like an entire manga panel that's just like a close up of her ass, and I'm just like, why? Like, but okay, sure.
I'm pretty sure the anime is worse. Like it's still
Probably.
like it's still not like Death Note is very tame in that way in a lot of ways, and at least until Misa is introduced, which
Yeah.
even that isn't too bad.
I love the frame. Like I love the manga like in comic like page layouts and framing, and it just I always laugh when you get like something like an entire panel just dedicated to ass. I'm just like the artist clearly had a thing for this right here.
Yeah, seems like a lot of manga artists are butt guys.
Yeah, I mean, hey. um,
I mean, I get it, you know,
I was
but
gonna I was gonna say though, like that whole part where he basically just stalks her and like follows her, and then like the way he gets her to like reveal her actual identity is fucking like devious. I was like,
just
wow.
mean, just mean
Oh yeah.
playing
And
on a
then
grief like that.
yeah, and then the second she shows him, he's like, "Oh yeah, by the way, I'm Kira."
Yeah, like literally, there's a second away from when the him writing the name like kicks in, and he's like,
Yeah.
and he has a habit of doing that. You'll notice because he did the same thing with Ray Penber.
Hmm.
Because as soon as because Ray Penber collapsed as he was walking off the train, having the heart attack, and he's like he turns around, he's trying to like look into the train to see because he knows Kira's there, and Light's just standing right there. And he does the whole like, oh goodbye, like he has to. It's not enough that he wins. He has to fucking look you in the eye and gloat when he does it,
Oh, the
and
way he does it
it
to
happens over and over
oh
again.
yeah, the way he does it to Naomi is just fucking like evil though, because he just like straight up like gives her all this hope, and then like all of a sudden he's like, "Oh yeah, by the way, I'm Kira," and then like the what made that scene even darker is the fact that because her death was designated a suicide, like she has that look of horror on her face for like a split second, then immediately just goes stone face, is like, I have something I need to do, and then just walks off screen to never be seen again. And I'm just like, holy fuck. Like,
That scene is so haunting in the anime. Like that was honestly one of the big things that caught me when I was watching it. Is like because that whole scene where he does the whole it's because I'm Kira, and then like you kind of in that scene you see her eyes widen and like the kind of like the expression on her face, like as her face changes and you see the dawning realization, and then all of a sudden it just shuts down.
yeah.
And in the anime, there's actually a scene like as she's walking away where it kind of like shows like a silhouette of like a gallows,
Yeah,
like she's gonna go hang herself. I mean, it never actually is revealed how she kills herself in the manga, but like it's implied in the anime that she, found somewhere secluded and hung herself. But
yeah, she just kind of disappears, and it's like she basically is missing in action.
yeah, which such a missed op because she was such a good character for the short time that she was there. Like she was, incredibly smart, brave. If you read the novel, like you get so much more out of her as a character too. Like it's like it just feels like she wasn't there long enough. Like she could have brought so much more to
Small,
the
she
series.
is. She's like a perfect example of like the trope, small role, big impact.
Oh, for sure. Like that was a big turning point in the series, and even though she was never able to get in contact with Elle, uh, ultimately she still um, was able to kind of tip Elle off unintentionally
Mm.
because her parents, cause I don't know if we mentioned this, but she came with Ray in the first place because her parents live in Japan and he was going to meet her parents.
Mm.
But her parents hadn't heard or seen from her in a while after he had died, and they were obviously concerned. They called the police. That got patched through to Elle. Elle was like, "Oh, I recognize that name. I worked with her. I understand her at a certain level, and I know she would not kill herself. She would try to catch Kira. So
Mm.
something must have happened here."
Yeah.
And that was kind of what tipped him off. Like, okay, like he must have more power than we thought.
Mm.
And that
Well,
was when he
because
looked back at this video footage of Ray Penber's death. And when they see like, oh, he's kind of like trying to look into the train and like reaching towards it, and like that makes me feel like Kira was on the train. So who was he? Who was he investigating? And like basically led him down the path, and now he is set squarely at. It's either one of these two families. It's either the Yagami family or this other guy's family.
mm.
So at this point, we're at the end of volume 2, and he's boiled it down to one of two families, and one of them is certainly correct.
It's very interesting that like Light is like three steps ahead, but then L is like 5 steps ahead,
Mhm.
like the
they're,
whole
they're,
time.
they're playing like 7D chess over here. Like,
Oh yeah, well, because like when you think about it, his the way he kills off Naomi is like incredibly smart because he's like grieving fiance. Obviously, like if she kills herself, it would no one would really think anything of it, except
yeah,
for the fact that L is thinking like 12 steps ahead.
yeah. Well, except for he didn't count on the fact that Elle actually understands her personality and knows that that's not what
Yeah,
she would do.
yeah, it's one of those. It's an interesting thing where like L is kind of like that like wrench in all of Light's plans.
Yeah, and that's the fun thing about because they really are two sides of the same coin.
Hmm.
Like they are both just as intelligent, just as good at deductive reasoning, but they are on opposite sides of the fence about how all this works and what should be done, what could be done,
Yet they're
what
both
we're
more.
willing to do to get things done,
Hmm.
and so on.
And yet they're both morally gray, like in that like ambiguous like area where you're like, I have no idea what to think of these characters.
Yeah, well, again, this show does a very very good job of blurring the line between evil action and good intention, and that's one of the things that I think like draws people to this kind of series. It because it really shows kind of like it shows the good, but it also shows like the real grittiness of human nature
Hmm.
in a way that a lot of other series kind of like a lot of other series will either downplay it and say, well, all humans are inherently good, or it'll go completely the other way and say, well, everyone kind of sucks. But
Yeah.
this series does a good job of keeping that line nice and fuzzy and gray,
Hmm.
which
No,
is
100%.
really the way things actually are. That's life, and that's why I feel like this series is so grounded in that way,
Well, because
despite
that's a
all the surrounding shit.
really, yeah, because that's like a really real thing in life. Like, you can't live your life like black and white because that's just not how the world is. Like, the world is very gray.
Mhm.
And like, some people don't want to accept the fact that everything's pretty morally gray, but it really is kind of the way a lot of people are.
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
But
yeah,
yeah.
I will.
Oh, and after this, when basically Elle comes to the conclusion like it's one of these two families, what we're gonna do is we're gonna set cameras and wiretaps in these houses, and we're gonna spy on them. And when he reveals who it is, and it's like, oh shit, like one of the like pretty much like the dad of the group of the task force is like his family's under suspicion, and ultimately he gives his consent. And like there's a scene where like Matsuda's like, well, think about your wife and your daughter and this and that, and he like snaps. And this is one of those moments where I was saying like the way that was it Obata, the way he
Mhm.
like draws some of these characters' expressions, like this scene where Soichiro kind of like loses it for a second, and he's like, "Yeah, I fucking know. Like, I think I know more than you do, you fucking kid. But like, I need to make sure that if this is done, it's done right, and like, I need to do what's right for my family, and things aren't going to move on in a positive way until I can clear them of suspicion fully, completely, with no question."
Mhm.
And you can tell it's tearing him apart, like just in that one like couple or one or two manga panels, like the way that I don't know, like he's really good at drawing like human expression.
Mm. It's such a different character from the dad in the fucking Netflix movie, who just is kind of there.
For sure, for sure.
Um, yeah, very, very dense two mangas though. That's for sure.
Hmm. Yeah, and basically the second volume ends with Light essentially coming to the conclusion like, yeah, they bugged our house, so I got to be careful about how I do things. This is also where you learn that apples aren't just a tasty snack to Shinigami.
Mm.
They actually become highly addicted to them. There's like drugs and alcohol to Shinigami, and they actually go through withdrawals if they don't eat them, which is how he's able to convince Ryuk to look for the cameras and wiretaps for him.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's basically where we leave off. Is they're gonna try and figure out where they all are, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, because I remember the apple thing in the Netflix movie was just kind of like he just had apples every now and then. They never really mentioned it. I was like, that's
Yeah,
weird.
he would just eat apples, right? And that was the thing about that movie is he would eat the apples, but like Ryuk is so fucking big and he's got all those sharp teeth and everything else, but he would leave so much apple behind. Like in the manga and in the anime, he just fucking straight up pops them into his mouth like grapes. Like he doesn't give a fuck. He just eats the whole damn thing.
Yeah, it's such a weird. That movie is a masterpiece in like all the worst ways.
For real.
Yeah, it'll. I'm interested to see where it goes. It'll probably be a bit before we get back to Death Note,
Mhm.
just because we have to cycle through everything again. But
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I like a lot of the ones that we chose to do for cycling through because at least with I mean, Yu-Gi-Oh will be the hardest one, I think, just because there's more to those arcs. Like they're a little bit longer. Battle City will probably split in half just because it's so long.
yeah,
Um, but I mean, as far as Dragon Ball Super goes, like those arcs go quick, and like Death Note is dense, so we're probably just gonna try to stick to just 2 volumes at a time,
yeah, that'll probably be for
unless
the
there's
best.
yeah, unless there's like better cutoff points, whether it's like a couple of chapters early or a couple of chapters late, either way. But I think for the most part, we're going to try and stick to the 2 volume thing for Death Note.
Yeah. So that'll be fun, but I think that's just about it for this one.
So how are you enjoying it so far?
It's very compelling. It's probably I'm gonna have to probably sit down and re-go through the first two volumes again at some point just to soak it in a bit more. But
That's fair. I mean, you could.
I
I mean, the first 2 volumes, like they are very dense for sure. The anime boils those 2 volumes down to 6 episodes. So I mean, you could even just watch the 6 episodes. You just need like a little refresher before you read the next set. But
yeah, I mean I do want to rewatch the anime at some point.
mhm.
But
So that is an option rather than actually taking the time to read the volumes over again. You know,
yeah, that's true.
you
But
can watch
yeah,
it just about everywhere too.
yeah.
It's pretty widely available.
I mean, I have the DVD set somewhere, so
Oh yeah, I
there's a
do too. Actually, I think I lent it to my buddy though.
yeah. I remember that one used to be like you'd find it in Walmart all the time, like the full complete series set. And I'd be like, oh, that's easy enough.
Maybe like $25 for the whole series. Like, shit, yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah. But yeah. So, anyways, guys, once again, thank you for joining us on Geek Addicts. You can find Geek Addicts on all the major podcasting platforms, particularly Apple Podcast and Spotify. And be sure to check us out over on the Superpod Network. That is superpodnetwork.com. It is an awesome site with a whole bunch of different shows, videos, blogs, like all sorts of cool stuff. There's a bunch of awesome shows there like Superpod Saga, Super Ghost Radio, Retro Rehab, Tommy's Video Game Ride Along, and Novel Console, Bar Silence, Find Time, the Elder Scrolls Gaming Podcast, Remember 64, Gaming Together, Friday Night Gamecast, the 3G&C shows, Gaming and Collecting, the 3DO Experience, and Geek Addicts. And then there's also the Retro Wildlands, Press Beat, Cancel, and the Pre-Order Bonus Podcast. And with that, everybody, once again, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you all later.
Have a good one.